Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking what we spoke about yesterday when it comes to Jeff Hardy. We have a slight update when it comes to the status of Jeff Hardy. I know a lot of people have been concerned about him after he was sent home by WWE officials from the road this past weekend after he was in that live event on Saturday, tagged out of the match and then disappeared into the crowd. And then the report subsequently came out that Jeff Hardy was sent home. We have a bit of an update from someone obviously that's going to know a lot about the situation, that being his brother Matt Hardy. So we have an update when it comes to Jeff Hardy that we're going to touch on starting off today. Now, Matt Hardy has provided an update on his brother Jeff Hardy after he was reportedly sent home from a weekend WWE live event. Now, as noted, as we touched on yesterday, Hardy missed Sunday's WWE live event in Corpus Christi, Texas, and word going around via PW Insider was that he was sent home from the road. Now, Hardy worked Saturday's live event in Edinburgh, Texas, teaming with King Xavier Woods and Drew McIntyre against Universal Champion Roman Reigns and SmackDown Tag Team Champions The Usos in the main event. Now, after spending most of the match inside of the ring, getting worked over by the Bloodline and apparently becoming more and more sluggish as the match went on, Jeff Hardy made a hot tag to McIntyre, but after he made this hot tag, he immediately disappeared into the crowd. He was followed by security, but he never returned to the ring to celebrate with his teammates after the match was done. Now, Hardy was not backstage at Sunday's live event in Corpus Christi and was replaced by Rey Mysterio in that same match. It was a six-man tag team match once again. So there have been videos, of course, circulating on social media. We spoke about this yesterday of Hardy making his entrance. As he gets into the ring, you can kind of see him clutching his stomach. He doesn't look right. And there can be a variety of reasons as to why he would not look right or be right. He did look sluggish. He did look different. But as I spoke about yesterday, I am definitely, and I would encourage you to do the same, not to judge or assume anything when it comes to Jeff Hardy. Of course, given his history, it's easy to jump to conclusions. It's easy to think the worst in this situation, but ultimately, until we have the facts, whether that's from Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, WWE, whoever it may be, until we have those facts, it's not fair to speculate. Someone shouldn't be judged on their past or the mistakes that they've made in the past as well. So I'm certainly not going to do that. Again, I think it's too easy. But in an update on Hardy's situation, Matt Hardy addressed the rumors on Jeff during a live stream on Twitch yesterday afternoon. Now, Matt Hardy's wife, Rebby Hardy, noted that they were receiving a lot of questions about the other Hardy. They said, quote, "We got a lot of questions about TOH, the other Hardy," she said. "We got a lot. We can't ignore them. We got a lot." Now, Matt Hardy responded and said he spoke with Jeff earlier on in the day, and he is currently at home and he's doing fine. He said, quote, "But no, I won't ignore them. I did speak to Jeff for a little bit today, and he's okay. He's good, and I think he'll be fine. But once again, this isn't my business, and if he wants to go into more detail, then he'll do it himself. But like I said, Jeff is okay, he's at home, and he's okay." Now, there's still no word on if Jeff Hardy is going to be back in action or on WWE television this week. Of course, once we get an update on that, we'll speak about it here on the channel. Hardy is scheduled to wrestle on Friday's edition of SmackDown on Fox, teaming with Drew McIntyre for a tag team match against Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. So it's a brief update. I think it's the bare minimum, but to be honest, that's all anyone like myself or anyone that's not an immediate member of Jeff Hardy's family deserves. It's just Jeff Hardy's okay. And ultimately, that from a fan's point of view, that's all I care about. Obviously, if we get the details, we'll talk about it. But like I said, I'm not going to speculate. I'm certainly not going to judge. We don't know. And again, people can make assumptions about Jeff Hardy or about what happened because of his history, but he could have got injured. He could have, he was holding his stomach. Maybe he was coming into the match with an injury. Maybe he cracked a rib. Maybe he got a concussion because he wrestled the whole match. Maybe he got hurt during the match. Maybe he was ill. Maybe he had food poisoning. Maybe he had the flu. Maybe he had whatever. We don't know. We ultimately don't know. The most important thing is that Jeff Hardy is okay, and if he needs any help whatsoever, he gets the help that he deserves and the help that he needs. So, again, it's not much of an update, but I think it's the key update, and the rest can kind of play out at how it's going to play out. The most important thing, Jeff Hardy's okay, and hopefully he'll be back on Friday, and he'll be like nothing ever happened. Maybe that's the best case scenario. Maybe that will happen. Maybe that won't happen. We'll find out as the week goes on, but the most important thing is that Jeff Hardy is okay. So let's talk about Monday Night Raw, of course, last night. These bizarre segments between WWE Chairman and CEO Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon, and Austin Theory continued last week as this just strange storyline continues on Raw. Now, Austin Theory was once again featured in a Raw angle with WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon this week. Now, this storyline began 2 weeks ago with the infamous Survivor Series Cleopatra's Golden Egg that Austin Theory stole, and then he returned. And Vince McMahon was surprised and actually welcomed Austin Theory's boldness and put him in a match for the WWE Championship against Big E, but he lost. Then the following week, he spent the entire night, 3 hours, watching Raw. Poor him. In Vince McMahon's office, doing expect the unexpected, and then he slapped Austin Theory, Vince McMahon, across the face and said, "You have much to learn." Well, this storyline continued, as I mentioned, this week because Austin Theory was called into Vince's office. Vince said he was thinking about putting Theory in a match on Raw, which didn't happen, but it looks like Austin Theory has a new feud going forward, that being against Finn Balor. So, in a follow-up segment that aired... Honestly, it's bizarre. A follow-up segment later aired with Austin Theory doing jumping jacks in Vince's office when Vince told him that he wasn't ready earlier on in the night when he saw him, so there wouldn't be a match tonight. Vince said he was impressed by Theory's match against Big E, but Theory needed to find another way to impress him this week since there would be no match. Theory then tried to impress the chairman by showing off his abs while doing more jumping jacks, but that didn't... This is real, by the way, but that didn't work. Vince told Theory to use his brains and find another way to impress him. Theory then smiled before walking off. So Raw featured the match with Finn Balor versus T-Bar. Finn Balor got the victory. After the match, though, Austin Theory attacked Balor and laid him out with the ATL. He then took out his phone, took a selfie with Balor in the middle of the ring, and posted it on social media saying, "Expect the unexpected. Impressed, Mr. Vince McMahon?" I have no idea where this is going. And usually, and I said this before, usually that is a good thing. You know, as a viewer of any television program, let alone pro wrestling, whatever it is, of any program, I don't want to be able to read where things are going. I want to be surprised, expect the unexpected, all that kind of stuff. The issue is, and maybe this is me just being, years of watching WWE and just being so cynical of the lack of creativity in this alleged creative team at this point. But usually, when the viewer goes, "I have no idea where this is going," it's because the creative team is also saying the same things. Remember Elias? Remember that guy who had those vignettes about killing off Elias and he killed off the Elias character? He's just vanished. And then the report came out last week that it was meant to kill off the musical version of the Elias character, but he was meant to be rebranded, come back with something different, a different look. But when they were shooting those vignettes, they had no idea where it was going to be going. They didn't. They just knew they wanted to kill off the character. So I suspect the same thing here. They want to do something, but they don't know the end goal or the end game of this. No idea. I really don't. And you could argue, but it's Vince McMahon. Anything involving Vince McMahon's got to have a big angle at the end of it, like a big storyline at the end of it. I really don't think so. Because again, we know how this creative process works. Raw gets rewritten live on the air. So of course they don't have an end game for this. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they're going to go with this huge end game where... My concern is that Vince McMahon is acting as a mentor-like figure to Austin Theory. Maybe even a father-like figure to Theory, right? For me, my concern is that we're going to get an Austin Theory versus Shane McMahon feud. Shane McMahon comes back, "Why are you being a father to this guy when you were never a father to me?" And we get more McMahon family drama, because that's the cure, isn't it? That's the cure to the ratings issue that plagues WWE and specifically Monday Night Raw. We need more McMahon stuff. We need that McMahon soap opera to return. That's my worry. That's the only way I can see this one going. I mean, they could try something even more outlandish, but we'll wait and see. But it just seems very bizarre. Speaking of Raw last night, though, as well, we also have a match confirmed for WWE Day 1. Another match confirmed for WWE Day 1, that pay-per-view on Saturday, January 1st. And it's between The Miz and WWE Hall of Famer Edge. It's now official for the inaugural Day 1 pay-per-view. Now, this feud between the two kicked off last week as both returned to the Red Brand for an in-ring confrontation. This week, Miz invited Edge to Miz TV on Raw. And after another back and forth on the microphone, Miz challenged Edge to a match, but he botched the pay-per-view name. It says, "I want you to face me at January 1. It's Day 1. But I'm not going to get too much on that. So it's going to mean that Edge and The Miz are going to be facing off. Isn't the first time they faced off. I think they faced off a handful of times previously because, of course, The Miz was still here. The Miz was on WWE television and was actually very successful at the time of Edge's retirement. Remember that WrestleMania 27? Edge's final match before he retired, when he opened the show, Miz main evented that show. He was the WWE champion. So they have faced off a handful of times. As I mentioned before, it does seem a bit of an odd feud, but I think it's just a case of, Edge has had some feuds this year. He came out of the Rollins one victorious, but he lost, and he did lose against Rollins on SmackDown and MSG, but he lost against Reigns, he lost at WrestleMania, and I think they realized that Edge probably does need a win, a convincing win here. And they need to build him back up because I think, again, the long-term goal, I'm assuming, and I might be wrong here, but I think the long-term goal is probably to do Edge versus Big E for the WWE Championship. When that would be, maybe WrestleMania, I don't know. I think the plan would be to do Edge versus Big E and have Big E go over and really cement Big E as the guy, as the WWE Champion. And I think that's what Edge would want to do as well. So I think a victory over The Miz here paves the way for that of Edge has got momentum again. So I think that'll be the way. Because otherwise, what's Edge going to do? Give the rub to The Miz? He doesn't need to. Miz doesn't need the rub, frankly. So I think it's just a case of two veterans going off. They can do good promos, good segments. Their segments have been fine. We could see something change, and I wouldn't be surprised still if we do see the change. Maryse is back. We'll touch on her in a second. And I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a mixed tag team match similar to WrestleMania 33 with The Miz and Maryse versus John Cena and Nikki Bella. I could see something similar like that. In this case, it would be The Miz and Maryse versus Edge and Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix has just left the NXT commentary booth to spend more time at home, but that doesn't mean she's not going to wrestle. I think she's still under contract to WWE. So I think that's something they would be open to as well. So we'll wait and see with that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if this does change. Finally, I want to talk about another match, of course, that is going on for day one, that being Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, Universal Championship. Now, obviously, they had their match at Crown Jewel, which Reigns won controversially. But WWE is reportedly moving forward with plans for a series of matches between Brock Lesnar and Universal Champion Roman Reigns. It was originally reported that Lesnar versus Reigns, talk about merging them, Lesnar versus Reigns at Crown Jewel in October was not a one-and-done match between the two, and that WWE had another title match planned with Lesnar challenging Reigns at some point in the future. Well, of course, in an update, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for WWE Day 1 was confirmed Friday on SmackDown, and word now is that the series will continue past the Day 1 pay-per-view in January. It was noted by F4W Online that Lesnar versus Reigns as the main event of Day 1 is just one of the matches in the series that they're going to have, which is planned to be a multi-match series between the two. There's no word yet on when the next Lesnar versus Reigns match will take place after Day 1. It could happen at the Royal Rumble, which of course is taking place from the Dome at America's Center in St. Louis. Lesnar versus Reigns is also expected to headline WrestleMania 38 from AT&T Stadium in Dallas on April 2nd and 3rd, either day, probably the second night. It depends how this is going to go. My only thing I would say about this, and again, I'm not against it. The reason I'm not against it is because who else do they have? They have, at this point, definitely on SmackDown, and even on Raw, actually, there's nobody credible. There is nobody credible to face Roman Reigns at this point. We were saying before, have a nice feud with Jeff Hardy. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now. So who else is there? There is nobody. So they've got to do Brock versus Roman. I enjoyed the match that they did at Crown Jewel. If anything, I've enjoyed the storyline. Again, whilst we've seen this match, Reigns versus Lesnar, a million times, it's completely different. Not only are the roles reversed, but they're so radically reversed that it is intriguing. And the Paul Heyman factor, again, is incredibly intriguing. So I don't have a problem with them doing a series of matches. My concern, as always, when it comes to WWE is creative. Can they creatively stretch this out as long as they need to? That would be my concern. Because Brock Lesnar isn't winning the Universal Championship at Day 1. That's not happening. So we're going to have either a screwy finish, or if Reigns defeats Lesnar again, why should Brock get another match at, say, WrestleMania? Unless, of course, he wins the Royal Rumble. If he wins the Rumble, though, and he faces Reigns at WrestleMania, which, again, I'm not against it. I think it makes sense. But is Brock going to win that main event? No, I don't think so. I don't have any desire to see Brock Lesnar be Universal Champion again for a prolonged period of time when he's not on the show, especially on SmackDown on Fox, where they've got to keep Fox happy. So I really don't know how much they can stretch it out. Again, I'm not opposed to it, but I think about the finishes to each of this. We're going to get a screw finish at day one, 100%. Whether that's Heyman finally turning on Lesnar, or I don't know. I don't know. And again, not a bad thing, but it's just, can WWE stretch this out? Do they have the ability to stretch this out? Time will tell on that one. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.